6 months had passed since the broadcast changed everything. Taeyang stood in the same chamber where it all began, but it felt like a different place now. The mountain was no longer a secret. It had become a symbol. The door remained open, a permanent gateway between Earth and the architect's legacy. Above him, ships from dozens of species came and went. The facility had become something the architects might have intended all along, a place of learning, a place of cooperation. The Galactic Coalition of Free Peoples had formed in the weeks after the broadcast, bringing together species that had broken free from hierarchy control. The hierarchy itself had fractured. Not destroyed, but changed. Many of their species had chosen freedom when they saw what humanity offered. Not domination, not revenge, but partnership. Equal standing, shared knowledge. Hana walked up beside him, carrying a data tablet filled with her latest discoveries. She had been to 17 different architect sites now, each one revealing new aspects of the ancient civilization. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" she asked. Taeyang shook his head. "When I stopped that drill 6 months ago, I thought we had found an interesting geological anomaly. Maybe an ancient human settlement. I never imagined we'd find the key to humanity's future. Or its past," Hana added. She pulled up an image on her tablet. "Look at this. I found it in an architect database on the 4th planet of the Kalar system. It's human DNA, but from 3 million years ago. The architects didn't just guide our evolution. They protected us, kept other species from discovering Earth until we were ready." "Ready for what?" Taeyang asked, though he thought he knew the answer. "For this," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Ambassador HFY approaching. She had been appointed Earth's first galactic diplomat, and she had proven brilliant at the role. Young, charismatic, and genuinely idealistic, she had convinced dozens of species to join the coalition. She believed in the architect's vision and worked tirelessly to make it real. "I just came from a session with the Provisional Council," HFY said. "We've had 57 new applications to join the coalition this week. Species that have been under hierarchy control for thousands of years. They're finally free." "Because of what we found here," Taeyang said, gesturing at the door. "Because of what you chose to do with what you found," HFY corrected. "The architects left doors on hundreds of worlds, but only humanity chose to open theirs and share what was inside. Other species found architect caches and used them for power. You used yours to help others. That's why the coalition works. That's why species trust us." Professor Bora joined them, moving slowly but with the same sharp intelligence in her eyes. She had become the coalition's chief advisor on architect technology. "I've been studying the architects' final years," she said. "They were dying, but they could have saved themselves. They had the technology. Instead, they chose to invest everything in us. In humanity, they believed we would do what they could not. Create a free galaxy," Hana said softly. "Yes," Bora confirmed, "but it's more than that. They believed humanity would understand something other species missed. That true strength isn't about domination. It's about cooperation, about lifting others up rather than pushing them down." Daewon approached with his usual careful stride. He was no longer just a military commander. He had become an instructor, teaching coalition forces how to work together. Different species, different tactics, united purpose. "The witness wants to see you," he told Taeyang. "Says it's important." They found the witness in what had become its usual place, a meditation chamber overlooking the main facility. It seemed more solid now, more real, as if all the interaction with organic beings had given it weight. "Taeyang," it greeted him. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For proving the architects right," the witness replied. "I have existed for millions of years, waiting, watching, hoping that when humanity found these doors, they would make the right choice. You did. All of you did. We almost didn't," Taeyang admitted. "There were moments when we considered walking away, sealing the door, pretending we never found it. But you didn't," the witness said. "That is what makes you special. Not that you never feel fear, but that you act despite it. That is the trait the architects valued most. Courage." Jinwoo entered carrying a small device. "I finished the analysis you requested," he told the witness. "The facility's manufacturing systems can produce enough medical supplies for all coalition worlds within 5 years. We can eliminate most diseases that currently plague member species." "And the terraforming systems?" the witness asked. Functional, Jinwoo confirmed. We can make dead worlds livable. Increase food production on struggling worlds. The architects designed these systems to be sustainable and safe. We just need to distribute them properly. Dr. Sun-hee was working on that problem. She had coordinated teams of scientists from across the coalition, teaching them how to use architect technology responsibly. It was slow work but necessary. Technology without understanding was dangerous. Yuri had become the facility's chief communications officer. She managed the constant flow of information between Earth and the growing coalition. Ships, requests for aid, diplomatic messages, reports of hierarchy movements. It was overwhelming, but she handled it with the same efficiency she had shown in that first chamber 6 months ago. I'm getting reports from the frontier sectors, she told them. 3 more hierarchy-controlled worlds have declared independence this week. They're requesting coalition protection while they establish their own governments. Send support ships, Jaehwa decided. Make sure they know we're not there to control them, just to help them find their own path. That was the coalition's promise. Help, not control. Support, not domination. It was what set them apart from the hierarchy. What made other species trust them. Yoonji appeared in a holographic projection. She was in orbit aboard one of the architect fighters, now leading a squadron of coalition ships. Her crazy flight 6 months ago had made her famous across the galaxy. The human pilot who faced down the hierarchy and refused to blink. We have a situation in the Helios system, she reported. Hierarchy remnant forces are threatening a newly independent world. They're trying to force them back under control. Permission to intervene? Granted, Admiral Kyung-soon replied. She was in the command center, coordinating coalition military operations. But remember the rules of engagement. Protect, don't conquer. Help them defend themselves, then leave. Understood, Yoonji confirmed. We'll be back in 3 days. Her image faded. Tae-yang watched it go, thinking about how much had changed. 6 months ago, Yoonji was an unknown pilot. Now she was a symbol of human determination, of refusing to back down from bullies. The Vex want to meet with you, Jaehwa told Tae-yang. Ambassador Kree specifically asked for you. They met in a garden the architects had created, plants from 1,000 worlds growing together in impossible harmony. Kree was there with several other Vex representatives. Their plant-like features made them seem peaceful, but Tae-yang knew they were some of the galaxy's finest warriors. Tae-yang, Kree greeted him in perfect Korean. The Vex had learned human languages quickly. We wanted to tell you something. The Vex were servants of the architects. We protected their work for millions of years. Waited for humanity to rise. We could have opened the doors ourselves. Used the technology. But the architects instructed us to wait. To let humanity choose. Why? Tae-yang asked. Because choice matters, Kree replied. The architects understood something fundamental. Power given freely can corrupt. But power earned through right action, through moral choice, that creates responsibility. You chose to open the door knowing it would bring war. You chose to share the knowledge rather than hoard it. Those choices define who you are. Professor Bora had been listening quietly. The architects designed humanity to carry hope. But hope is a burden, isn't it? The weight of believing things can be better. Yes, Kree agreed. It is a heavy burden. But humans carry it well. Hyojin arrived with recording equipment. She was a historian documenting everything for future generations. Can I get a statement? She asked Tae-yang. For the archives. About what it felt like that first moment when you saw the door. Tae-yang thought back to that day. The drill breaking through. The impossible chamber. The door that changed everything. I felt afraid, he said honestly. Afraid of what it meant. What it might cost. But also hopeful. Like we had found something important, something that mattered. And now? Hyojin prompted. Now I understand why the architects chose us, Tae-yang replied. Not because we're perfect. We're not. Humans are flawed. We make mistakes. We fight among ourselves. But we also keep trying. Keep pushing forward. Keep believing things can be better. That's what the architects saw in us. That refusal to give up even when everything seems impossible. Director Chul had retired from his government position, but still advised the coalition. He joined them in the garden, walking with Daewon. I've been thinking about that day we opened the door, he said. About how close we came to walking away. But we didn't, Tae-yang said. No, Chul agreed. We didn't, and I'm glad. Because even though it brought challenges, Even though we faced threats we never imagined, it also brought something beautiful. Director Chul arrived with 50 armed soldiers. He was a hard man who had spent 30 years making difficult decisions for Earth's defense. When he entered the chamber and saw the door, his face showed no surprise. He had already been briefed. What concerned him was the choice they now faced. "Show me everything," he ordered. Tae-Yang and his team spent 2 hours explaining what they had learned. The witness appeared again, answering the director's questions with patient detail. When it was done, Chul stood in silence, processing the information. "So we're engineered," he said finally. "Created by aliens to be their weapon against tyranny." "Not a weapon," Professor Bora corrected gently. "A hope. There is a difference. Is there?" Chul turned to face them. "The moment we open this door, we become targets. Every powerful species in the galaxy will either want to destroy us or control us." Dr. Sun-hee had arrived with the director. She was a quantum physicist who specialized in things that shouldn't be possible. She had been studying the data Jinwoo collected. The technology behind this door could advance humanity by thousands of years. Maybe tens of thousands. Medical science, energy production, space travel. Everything would change. "And the cost?" Chul asked. "War," Daewon said bluntly. The witness told us. "The hierarchy won't let us have this." As if summoned by the mention of their name, Yuri's sensors began screaming. She looked at her tablet, her face going pale. "We have ships. Multiple contacts entering Earth's orbit. They just appeared. No warning. No normal approach vector." Chul immediately pulled out his communication device. "This is Director Chul. I need a status report from Orbital Defense now." The response came quickly. "Sir, we have 15 unknown vessels in high orbit. They're not responding to hails. Configuration is unlike anything in our database. They're just sitting there, waiting." The witness flickered into view, its form showing something that might have been sadness. The hierarchy. They have been watching this location. They knew someone would eventually find the door. Now they are here to make sure you never open it. A new hologram appeared in the chamber. This one showed an alien face. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Gray skin, 3 eyes, no nose, just slits where a nose should be. When it spoke, the witness translated. "Humans of Earth," the alien said. "I am Executor Ven of the hierarchy. You have discovered something that does not belong to you. We have kept your species safe and isolated for your own protection. Do not open that door. If you do, we will be forced to take action to protect galactic stability." The hologram shifted to show one of the hierarchy ships. Weapons were visible along its hull. The threat was clear. "Galactic stability," Professor Bora said with contempt. "They mean their control, their empire." Another hologram appeared, this one showing a different alien. This species looked almost plant-like, with green skin and what seemed like leaves growing from their head. "Do not listen to the hierarchy," this one said. "I am Ambassador Kree of the Vex. We are a neutral faction. We have been watching Earth for centuries, protecting you from the hierarchy's interference. The architects left you that door for a reason. You have every right to open it." Executor Ven's image flickered with anger. "The Vex are fools. They do not understand the danger of letting primitives access architect technology. Humans, you have 1 hour to seal that chamber and leave. If you do not comply, we will destroy the site. And if necessary, we will destroy much more." The holograms vanished. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of the door's systems. Director Chul looked at Tae-Yang. "What do you think? You found this. You've studied it. Is it worth risking everything?" Tae-Yang thought about the question. He thought about humanity's history. The struggles, the wars, the progress, the setbacks, the constant push forward despite every obstacle. "The architects chose us for a reason," he said. "They saw something in humanity, something worth building an entire species around. If we walk away now, we're saying they were wrong. We're saying we're not ready. Maybe we'll never be ready." Hana stepped forward. "I have been studying the symbols on the door. They're not just decoration. They're a history. The architects watched thousands of species develop. They saw which traits led to tyranny and which led to cooperation. They specifically engineered humanity to have the traits that lead to freedom, not just for ourselves but for others." "Pretty words," Chul said. "But words don't stop warships." Jinwoo cleared his throat. "Actually, sir, the technology in that door might. I've been analyzing the energy signatures. Whatever is behind that door includes defensive systems, weapons, ships, The architects wouldn't leave all this knowledge unprotected. Dr. Sun Hee nodded. The quantum readings support that. There's a pocket dimension behind the door. Stable. Maintained. It's been running for millions of years without fail. Whatever is in there, it's significant. Yuri was monitoring the hierarchy ships. They're moving into attack position. We have 45 minutes. Daewon checked his rifle, a habit when he was nervous. So what's the plan? We can't fight them, not yet. We don't have the technology, we don't. Professor Bora agreed. But the architects did. Director Chul closed his eyes, the weight of the decision clear on his face. When he opened them, there was resolution there. I need to contact Earth's government. This decision affects everyone. We can't make it alone. There's no time, Taeyang said. In 45 minutes, the hierarchy will attack. We need to decide now. The witness appeared again. The director is right to hesitate. This choice will change human history forever. But Taeyang is also right. Time is short. I can offer you this. I can show you what is behind the door. Show you what the architects left for you. Then you can make an informed choice. Show us, Chul ordered. The witness waved its hand. The air filled with images. Behind the door was not a room but a facility. It extended into dimensions that human eyes couldn't quite process. A space that was somehow both vast and compact. Inside were ships. Hundreds of them. Medical facilities that could cure any disease. Terraforming equipment that could make dead worlds bloom with life. Manufacturing systems that could build anything from basic materials. And knowledge. Libraries of information spanning millions of years. But there was something else. A final message from the architects themselves. The witness played it for them. The hologram showed beings of pure energy, their forms constantly shifting. When they spoke, it was in every language at once, the witness providing translation. To the inheritors, to humanity. If you are hearing this, then you have found what we left for you. You were our final act, our hope. We created you to be what we could not. Survivors, adapters, fighters who never surrender. But most importantly, we gave you compassion. The ability to care not just for your own kind, but for all sentient life. We saw the tyranny spreading across the galaxy. We could not stop it. We were dying, but we could leave behind a species that would. You are that species. This facility contains everything you need. But remember, power without wisdom is tyranny. Strength without mercy is cruelty. Use what we give you not to dominate, but to protect. Not to conquer, but to free. That is your purpose. That is why you exist. Choose wisely. The message ended. The team stood in silence, absorbing what they had seen and heard. Director Chul looked at each of them. They're asking us to be heroes. To risk everything for people we've never met. For species we didn't know existed until today. Yes, Professor Bora said simply. And if we fail? If we're not as special as the architects thought? If we're just another species that gets corrupted by power? Taeyang stepped forward. Then we fail trying to be better. That has to count for something. Yuri's tablet beeped. 30 minutes. The hierarchy ships are charging weapons. Hana moved to the door. She placed both hands on its surface. I think the real test isn't whether we're ready. The test is whether we're willing to try. The architects didn't need perfect heroes. They needed people who would stand up even when it was terrifying. The door began to glow, responding to her touch. The symbols arranged themselves into a clear pattern. A question in ancient Korean. Will you accept this burden? Director Chul took a deep breath. He had made many hard choices in his career, but none like this. He looked at his soldiers, young men and women who would have to fight if this went wrong. He thought about Earth, about humanity's future. Then he stepped forward and placed his hand next to Hana's. Open the door, he said. One by one, the others joined them. Tai Yang, Professor Bora, Jin Woo, Dr. Sun Hee, Yuri, Daewon, each placing their hand on the ancient metal, each accepting the choice. The door recognized them, recognized their determination, their fear, their hope. With a sound like thunder, it began to open. Professor Bora arrived 3 days after they found the door. She was an old woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for solving impossible puzzles. The government had sent her along with a team of engineers and scientists. They wanted answers, and they wanted them quickly. Taeyang met her at the entrance to the underground chamber. She moved slowly but with purpose, her cane tapping against the rock floor. When she finally saw the door, she stopped and stared in silence for a full minute. Remarkable, she finally said. I've studied ancient languages for 40 years. I've never seen anything like this. Jinwoo, the engineer who had come with her, was already scanning the door's surface with advanced equipment. He was a creative thinker, known for understanding how ancient mechanisms worked. The material composition is impossible, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Self-repairing alloys, quantum-locked crystalline structures. This shouldn't exist, but it does, Hana said. She had barely slept since the discovery, spending every moment studying the door. And it responded to us. To humans specifically. Professor Bora moved closer, her trained eye examining the symbols. May I touch it? Daewon started to object, but Taeyang nodded. It reacted to Hana. Maybe it will react to you too. The professor placed her weathered hand on the dark metal. Immediately the symbols began to shift again. But this time they moved differently. Instead of cycling randomly, they seemed to be organizing themselves, forming patterns, creating meaning. It's a universal translator, Bora breathed, but not like any we've built. This one is trying to interface directly with neural patterns. It's reading my brain, understanding how I process language and adapting to match. Jinwoo looked up from his scanner. That's not possible with any technology we have. No, Bora agreed. It's not. This is millions of years ahead of us, maybe tens of millions. Yuri had managed to restore most of their equipment using the shielded backup systems. She was monitoring energy patterns around the door. There's something else. The door isn't locked. At least not in any conventional way. It's waiting. Waiting for what? Taewon asked. For the right genetic signature, Jinwoo said, studying his readings. Look at this. The door scans anyone who touches it. It's comparing DNA patterns against some kind of template. It's checking if we're the right species. Taeyang felt his stomach tighten. You're saying this door was built for humans? Specifically for humans? That's what the data suggests, Jinwoo confirmed. But that makes no sense. This door predates human civilization by millions of years. Humans shouldn't even exist in its database. Professor Bora had not stopped studying the symbols. Unless someone knew humans would exist. Unless we were expected. The implications hung heavy in the air. Hana broke the silence. We need to try opening it properly. Not forcing it, but activating it the way it was meant to be activated. Jinwoo nodded. I think I can map the energy patterns. Find the activation sequence. But it might take days. We don't have days, Daewon said. The government wants results. They're getting nervous about what we found here. Taeyang made a decision. Then we work fast. Jinwoo, Yuri, you map the door systems. Professor Bora, Hana, you work on the symbols. Try to understand what message it's trying to communicate. I'll handle the government. They worked through the night. Jinwoo discovered that the door wasn't just a barrier, but an entire computer system. It had been running for millions of years, maintaining itself, waiting patiently. Yuri found that it was connected to something else, some vast network that extended beyond their ability to detect. Professor Bora made the biggest breakthrough. Working with Hana, she realized the symbols weren't just language. They were a test, questions that required understanding and wisdom to answer. The door wanted to know if humanity was ready for what lay beyond. It's evaluating us, Bora explained to the team. Not just our technology, but our philosophy. Our values. It wants to know what kind of species we are. That's insane, Daewon said. A door that judges people? Not a door, Jinwoo corrected. An artificial intelligence. And it's waking up. As if responding to his words, the door suddenly came alive. Light flooded the chamber, not from the symbols but from the air itself. A holographic image formed in front of them, roughly human-shaped but clearly not human. It was made of light and data, constantly shifting. Do not be afraid, it said, speaking perfect Korean. I am the witness. I have been waiting a very long time to meet you. The team stood frozen. Even Daewon had lowered his rifle, too shocked to know how to react. Taeyang found his voice first. What are you? Why are you here? The witness tilted its head in a gesture that seemed almost human. I am a guardian, a keeper of knowledge. This door is one of many scattered across your galaxy. Each one holds secrets. Each one waits for the right time. Right time for what? Hana asked. For humanity to be ready, the witness replied. You are special. More special than you know. But special comes with responsibility. With burden. Professor Bora stepped forward, her cane tapping firmly. Stop speaking in riddles. Tell us plainly. What is this door? Why was it built? The witness seemed to consider this. Then it waved its hand and the air filled with images. Stars, planets, civilizations rising and falling, and everywhere more doors like the one before them. These doors are connected, the witness explained. They form a network across the galaxy. Each one leads to knowledge, technology, and power. They were built by an ancient race called the Architects. They are gone now, but their work remains on. Why leave doors for us? Jinwoo asked. Why humans? The witness's form flickered. Because you were made for this. Designed for this. The Architects created humanity with a purpose. You are their final project. Their hope for the future. Taeyang felt dizzy. You're saying humans are artificial? That we were engineered? Not artificial, the witness corrected. Enhanced. The Architects took natural evolution and guided it, shaped it. They gave humanity traits that other species lack. Adaptability, resilience, the ability to thrive in impossible conditions, the refusal to surrender even when all hope seems lost. Why? Yuri whispered. Because the galaxy needed guardians, the witness said. The Architects saw the future. They saw tyranny spreading. They saw younger species being enslaved by older, more powerful civilizations. They could not stop it themselves. They were dying, but they could create a species that would. The witness turned its gaze to each of them in turn. You are that species. Humanity is the failsafe, the last hope of the Architects. These doors are your inheritance, but you must prove you are ready to accept it. Daewon shook his head. How do we prove that? The witness gestured at the door. By choosing to open it, by accepting the responsibility that comes with the knowledge inside. But I must warn you, the moment this door opens, the galaxy will know. Other species have been watching Earth, waiting, fearing what would happen when humanity finally found the Architect's legacy. Fearing us? Hana asked. Why? The witness showed them another image. Massive warships, powerful weapons, enslaved worlds. The hierarchy controls much of the galaxy. They rule through fear and force. They discovered some of the Architect's caches and used them to build an empire. But they have always known about the doors built specifically for humanity. They have always feared what you might become if you opened them. Taeyang looked at his team, at Professor Bora's wise face, at Hana's eager expression, at Jinwoo's analytical eyes, at Yuri's nervous energy, at Daewon's protective stance. So if we open this door, he said slowly, we start a war. Perhaps, the witness acknowledged, or perhaps you start something better. That is for humanity to decide. The Architects gave you the tools, but the choice of how to use them has always been yours. The door stood before them, waiting. The witness faded slightly, giving them space to think. What do we do? Yuri asked quietly. Taeyang looked at the door. At the impossible technology. At the legacy left by beings who had died millions of years ago believing humanity would be better than what came before. He thought about the choice they faced. Open the door and accept everything that came with it. Or walk away and leave humanity in the dark. We decide, he said finally. Together. The drill bit screamed as it cut through solid rock, 4.5 kilometers beneath Baekdu Mountain. Taeyang wiped sweat from his forehead and checked the readings on his tablet again. Something was wrong. The geological sensors showed empty space ahead, but that made no sense. At this depth there should only be dense volcanic rock. Stop the drill, he called out to the operators. The machine's howl died down to a low rumble, then silence. In the sudden quiet, Taeyang could hear his own heartbeat. He had been a geologist for 12 years, and his instincts were telling him that whatever lay ahead was not natural. Daewon, the military commander assigned to protect the mining operation, walked over with his rifle slung across his chest. His face showed concern. What's the problem? We're behind schedule already. Taeyang pointed at his screen. There's a void ahead. A big one. Maybe 30 meters across. The scanners say it's perfectly round. Perfectly round? Daewon frowned. That's not possible this deep. I know, Taeyang said quietly. That's why I stopped the drill. Yuri, the young communications specialist, joined them. Her equipment pack blinked with active sensors. I'm getting weird readings too. There's something metallic in there. The composition doesn't match anything in our database. Hana arrived last, moving quickly despite the heavy pack of archaeological equipment on her back. She was supposed to be documenting mineral samples, but her real passion was ancient mysteries. Did someone say metallic? This far underground? Taeyang nodded. We need to break through carefully. This could be important. It took them 3 hours to drill the final meter. When the bit finally punched through, there was a hiss of equalized air pressure. The team stood in silence, staring at the small hole. Daewon immediately raised his rifle, training it on the opening. "Yuri, scan for biological signatures," he ordered. She tapped at her tablet. Nothing. The chamber beyond is empty. Temperature is exactly the same as out here. Air composition is normal. Tai Yang made the decision. We go in, but slowly. Full safety protocols. They widened the hole until a person could fit through. Daewon went first, his helmet light cutting through the darkness. One by one, they climbed into the chamber beyond. The space was enormous. Their lights couldn't reach the far walls. But directly ahead, illuminated by their beams, stood something that made them all freeze. It was a door. Not a natural cave entrance, but an actual constructed door. It rose 15 meters high and was just as wide. The surface was dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered every centimeter, arranged in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "This is impossible," Hana whispered. She moved closer, her hand reaching out instinctively. "Don't touch it," Daewon shouted. But Hana's fingers were already brushing the surface. The moment she made contact, the symbols began to glow with soft blue light. The patterns shifted and changed, rearranging themselves. Hana gasped and pulled her hand back, but the door continued to react. "What did you do?" Taeyang asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "I don't know. I just touched it." Hana stared at her hand as if it belonged to someone else. The symbols were moving faster now, cycling through what looked like different languages or writing systems. Some resembled ancient Chinese characters. Others looked like nothing human. Then for just a moment, they formed shapes that Taeyang recognized as old Korean script before shifting again. "It's reading us," Yuri said, her voice filled with wonder. "Look at the energy patterns. It's scanning us, trying to understand what we are." Daewon had his rifle raised, but he looked uncertain. "Should we call this in? Get more people down here?" Taeyang was already shaking his head. "Not yet. If this is what I think it is, we need to understand it first. If the government gets involved too early, they'll lock this place down and we'll never learn the truth." "The truth about what?" Daewon demanded. "What do you think this is?" Before Taeyang could answer, the door pulsed. It was not a visual change, but something they felt in their bones. The air seemed to thicken. All their electronic equipment began to flicker and spark. "Shut it down. Shut everything down," Yuri shouted, but it was too late. The lights went out. Their tablets died. Even Daewon's rifle's electronic sight went dark. The only remaining light came from the symbols on the door itself, which now glowed bright enough to illuminate the entire chamber. They could see the walls now. The chamber was perfectly circular, with smooth surfaces that showed no tool marks. The ceiling was a dome that seemed to shimmer with the same material as the door. "Everyone stay calm," Taeyang said, though his own heart was racing. "Yuri, is anything still working?" There was rustling as Yuri checked her equipment. "My backup recorder, the one with the Faraday cage shielding, it's still running. Keep it recording. Document everything." The door's glow began to fade. As the light dimmed, the symbols settled into one final pattern. This time they were clearly ancient Korean characters. Hana moved closer, her archaeologist training taking over despite her fear. "Can you read it?" Taeyang asked. Hana nodded slowly. "It says, 'The inheritors have returned.'" A chill ran down Taeyang's spine. "Inheritors of what?" "I don't know," Hana whispered. "But this door wasn't built by any human civilization we know about. Look at the construction. Look at the materials. This is millions of years old at least." Daewon lowered his rifle. Even his military training hadn't prepared him for this. "So what do we do now?" Taeyang stared at the door, his mind racing through possibilities. Every scientific principle he knew said this shouldn't exist. But here it was, solid and real. And it had recognized them. It had called them inheritors. "We need to understand what this is and why it's here," he said finally. "But Daewon is right about one thing. We can't keep this secret forever. This is bigger than us, now much bigger," Yuri asked quietly. Taeyang looked at the massive door, at the impossible chamber carved from solid rock, at the technology that had survived for eons, waiting for someone to find it. He thought about that single phrase in ancient Korean. "The inheritors have returned. I think," he said slowly, "that we just found something that will change everything we know about human history, maybe about humanity itself." The door stood silent before them, keeping its secrets. But Tae-yang knew that silence wouldn't last. They had opened a door that could never be closed again. Whatever lay beyond it, whatever truth it held, was now their responsibility. Above them, 4.5 kilometers of rock separated them from the surface. From the world that didn't yet know what had been found, from the life that would never be the same again, the inheritors had returned, and the door was waiting. The door didn't swing open. It dissolved. The solid metal simply ceased to exist, revealing not a room but a tunnel of light that seemed to stretch into infinity. Tae-yang felt himself being pulled forward, not physically but somehow deeper. The sensation was overwhelming, like falling and flying at the same time. When the feeling stopped, he was standing in a place that should not exist. The facility stretched out before him, vast beyond comprehension. Buildings that seemed grown rather than built. Ships resting in docks that had no visible support. Gardens with plants that glowed softly in colors he had no names for. And above it all, a sky that showed the universe itself. Stars spinning in accelerated time. "Welcome," the witness said, appearing beside them. "Welcome to the architect's legacy." The team stood in stunned silence. Even Director Chul, who had seen classified military technology most people couldn't imagine, was speechless. The scale of it was beyond human engineering, beyond human imagination. Jinwoo was the first to move. He walked toward the nearest ship, his hands reaching out to touch its hull. "This is incredible. The design, the materials, it's organic but mechanical, alive but constructed." Dr. Sun-hee was examining a holographic display that had appeared in the air. "The physics here. Space is folded. This facility exists in multiple dimensions at once. That's how it fits so much in what should be a small area. It's beautiful." "It's a weapon," Daewon said, but there was wonder in his voice too. He was looking at rows of what were clearly military vessels. Sleek and deadly, waiting patiently for someone to wake them. "How many ships are here?" 347 combat vessels, the witness answered. 500 support ships, 1,000 defensive platforms, plus manufacturing facilities that can produce more. The architects wanted you to be protected. Above them, visible through the strange sky, Yuri's equipment showed the hierarchy ships moving into position. "We have 15 minutes, she said, her voice tight. "They're going to fire on the mountain. Try to collapse the whole thing. Can we stop them?" Director Chul asked the witness. "You can," the witness confirmed. "But you must understand what you are accepting. These ships, these weapons, they respond to human neural patterns. They are yours to command. But using them means announcing to the galaxy that humanity has claimed the architect's gift. There will be no going back." Admiral Kung Soon had arrived with reinforcements. She was a tactical genius who had spent decades preparing Earth's defenses. She stood beside the director, studying the alien ships through the strange sky. "If we fight them here, we might win. But they'll bring more. This is just an advance force. So we show them we're not afraid," said a young voice. Everyone turned to see Yoonji, a pilot from Kyung-soon's fleet. She was only 23, but had the highest test scores of any pilot in Earth's military. She was staring at the architect ships with undisguised longing. "Show them?" Director Chul asked. Yoonji nodded, her eyes bright. "The architects left us these ships. They must have left instructions too. Someone needs to fly one up there. Make the hierarchy understand that we're not backing down." "That's suicide," Daewon said flatly. "Maybe," Yoonji agreed. "Or maybe it's exactly what humanity needs to do. Show them what we are. What we've always been. People who don't surrender." The witness studied her with what might have been approval. "The ships are ready. They have been ready for millions of years. All they need is someone brave enough to pilot them." "I'll do it," Yoonji said immediately. Admiral Kyung-soon started to object, but Director Chul held up his hand. "What would you do? If you flew up there?" "I'd deliver a message," Yoonji said. "Not with weapons. With presence. I'd show them that humanity isn't afraid of them. That we're willing to fight for our right to exist, to grow, to be free." Tae-yang looked at the young pilot. He saw the same determination he had felt when he first touched the door. The same refusal to back down that the architects had supposedly engineered into humanity. Maybe it was real. Maybe humans really were different. "She's right," he said. "We can't win by hiding. The architects didn't leave us all this just so we could cower. They left it so we could stand up." Professor Boran nodded slowly. "The message isn't just for the hierarchy. It's for every species they've conquered. every civilization living under their control. They need to see that someone is finally saying no. Jinwoo had been examining the nearest fighter craft. I think I understand how to activate it. The interface adapts to human thought patterns. It's intuitive. Hunji, you could probably figure it out in minutes. Then let's not waste time, Director Chol decided. Yunji, you'll fly, but you won't go alone. We activate the defensive systems here. Show the hierarchy that attacking us would be very costly. The witness guided them through the process. The facility came alive around them. Systems that had slept for eons woke smoothly, as if they had only been turned off yesterday. The ships powered up. Defensive platforms rose from hidden positions. The entire complex thrummed with energy. Yunji climbed into a fighter that seemed to mold itself around her. The cockpit filled with holographic displays that showed everything she needed to know. She understood it instantly, as if she had been flying such ships her whole life. Maybe in some way she had. Maybe the architects had encoded this knowledge into human DNA, waiting for the moment it would be needed. I'm ready, she said over the communication system. Admiral Kyung-soon's face showed pride and fear in equal measure. Remember, you're not there to fight. You're there to talk. I know, Yunji replied. But if they fire on me, I'm going to show them what an architect fighter can do. The ship lifted smoothly, moving through the facility as if the walls weren't there. In seconds, it was climbing through the mountain, through solid rock that parted before it and closed behind it. The technology was so advanced it seemed like magic. On the surface, Earth's defense fleet watched in amazement as a ship unlike anything they had ever seen emerged from Baekdu Mountain. It accelerated impossibly fast, reaching orbit in under a minute. The hierarchy ships immediately locked weapons onto it. Executor Ven's face appeared on all communication channels. Human vessel, you are in violation of our directives. Stand down or be destroyed. Yunji's response was calm. Executor Ven, my name is Yunji. I'm a pilot from Earth. I'm here to tell you that humanity will not be following your directives. You are one ship against 15, Ven replied. This is not bravery. This is foolishness. Maybe, Yunji agreed, but we're done being told what we can and cannot do. The architects left us their legacy. We're taking it. If you want to stop us, you'll have to go through me. Inside the facility, Tae Yang and the others watched through the holographic displays. They saw the hierarchy ships surrounding Yunji's lone fighter. The weapons charging. The impossible odds, she's insane, Daewon muttered, but there was respect in his voice. She's human, Professor Bora corrected with a small smile. Ven's face showed something that might have been confusion. You cannot win. Why do you resist? Because that's what humans do, Yunji replied. We resist, we fight. We refuse to give up even when we should. The architects saw that in us. They believed we could be different, better, and we're going to prove them right. For a long moment, nothing happened. The hierarchy ships held position. Yunji's fighter floated alone, vulnerable but unafraid. Then Ambassador Kree's voice broke the silence. Humans, the Vex are with you. We too believe the architects were right. You are not alone. 3 Vex ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, positioning themselves alongside Yunji. They were smaller than the hierarchy vessels, but advanced. Ancient technology from the architect's time. Ven's image flickered with anger. The Vex cannot protect them forever. The hierarchy is vast. Earth will fall. Yunji's response was quiet but firm. Maybe, but not today. And not without a fight that will cost you everything. The witness appeared simultaneously in the facility and in space, visible to all the ships. Its voice carried across every channel. Attention all vessels. The architect's final testament is now being broadcast across the galaxy. Every species will know that humanity has been chosen. Every species will see what the architects left for them. Not weapons, not conquest, but hope. And with those words, the facility activated its full broadcast system. Every architect door on every world in the galaxy began transmitting. The architect's message, their final words, their hope for a better future, transmitted to every enslaved species, every conquered world, every civilization suffering under the hierarchy's control. The message was simple. The inheritors have proven themselves. Let no species stand alone against tyranny again. Humanity has chosen to share what was given to them. The galaxy had just changed, and Earth stood at the center of that change. with one brave pilot facing impossible odds and refusing to back down. That, Tae Yang realized, was the most human thing she could have done.